Hello and welcome back to awtoolbox.com. I'm Glenn Keller, and in this video we are going to be working with data just a little bit more. In the previous video, or in one of our other videos, we talked about items, item revisions, files, as well as folder content, and we talked about some of the interface differences that you see while you select these elements. In this video, we're going to take that a little bit further. We're going to start taking a look at how to interact with that data. So specifically how to, let's say, add additional attachments, check in, check out, or edit the data in the system. Now, again, just like some of our other videos in this using course, we are kind of going through this at a higher level. We will touch on a lot of the differences, all the different options that there are, but we may go deeper in other videos. In here, if you are interacting with a piece of data, let's say this item revision that I have here, this is a bearing support for an assembly. You can see I have it open. I have the attachments page on it. Now, this object is not currently in a process. I can see that by coming into the overview. And if I look, it doesn't have a release status or a release date. If I wanted to, I could come in and scroll to the right in this table or to the left, and in process will be one of the attributes here. So I know that it hasn't been sent through a workflow yet. It also doesn't have a workflow tab, which means that it hasn't been sent through a workflow yet. So somebody is building this part and making decisions to kind of create it. As their changes are coming into the system, you're able to see their work in progress as they're interacting with it. Let's say that I am this individual. Then I can come in here and I can start working with it now that the CAD data has been modified. So I can come up here to the top, and let's say I need to make a change to it. So I'll come in and I'll click the ... and choose edit. And you'll notice that I don't have the permissions necessary to make this change. So if I choose edit and I don't have a command here, notice I can't edit the object. So the reason I can't edit the object is probably because I'm not the owning user of that object. And you can see owning user and owning group information here. So if this is in work and I wanted to edit that object, I could take a look at my group and role settings, and you can see I'm in the engineering group designer role. So one of my issues could be that I need to switch to the group and role that is representative of who owns that data. The other thing that I could do is ask the administrators to give my group permissions to edit this. But in a lot of cases, this data is imported. So I can quickly create a revision of this data that I own and then try and get that released so that I can change the properties on it. So if I come in here and I say new, revise, and I can see I get the next revision in sequence. Here's the name and the description, revised for permissions. And then I can say I want to include pieces of information as a part of the revise. So I can say include this data, include this, or don't include this data. If I right click on, or if I click on it and I come over to the right hand side, I can change the action to include it or not. And this is completely dependent upon my administrators. I can add it to projects, and then I could choose to open the new revision. I'm going to revise it, and notice I don't have permissions against the object to do so. So in this case, I would either need to be given the permissions to edit it, or I would need to be editing it as a part of a workflow. So let's take a look at something we can edit. If I come into Explorer and I select my home folder, I can see there's a folder underneath of it. New stuff is typically where I create new data, and then I'll go put it where I need it to be after the fact. So new stuff is also where new data is created if you don't have something selected when you build that data. Like when you're generating a report and saving off a file, there's no place to select where the file will be put, so it creates a link here for you. If I come over to the right-hand side and I choose ... notice there's a new button here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new piece of information that I own and can edit. So I can create a new change, I can add a new object. In this case, it's just going to be a new piece of information, new object completely. When I create that new object, notice there are a bunch of types in the system. So these types may be a lot less for you in your group and role. It just depends on what kind of objects you're allowed to create. I'm going to create a very basic item. I could create different types of items, and depending on the type, I may have additional attributes I can fill out. And then when I pick it, there are some base attributes like the ID, the revision, a name. So I'll call this test component. Description, and there may even be more attributes here with drop-down lists you can select from. I'm going to go ahead and click add, and in this case I can create that object. Notice it has a default display once it opens up, so I can see some default tabs up here, attachments, things like that. But also note that because I own it and I am the author of this object, I can then come in and choose edit and do edit with summary, or I can lock it down. Maybe I'm making a lot of changes to it and I don't want somebody to make a change while I'm making a change. If I say summary, then it puts it into kind of an edit mode for me, and I can update the component description. I can also update other attributes in here if I want to. Use the usability tools to kind of drag the fields bigger if you need to. And there isn't really the option for rich text in here. Then I can bounce around, and if you change the page, notice it prompts you to save even if you didn't click the save button up in the top right corner. Just note that if you click cancel, it'll roll back. It'll essentially just put it in the state you had it in before you clicked edit. I'm going to save this change and you'll see it'll move to the next page. If I go back to overview, my new description that I had placed in this object is here. So now I can add attachments. I can come in and I can say I want to attach a file to this, and then I can select the file. So I can come in here and I can say I want something off of my environment put in here. So I can grab something like this document here, and then I can say add. If I put it in here, I can see the file's been attached. I could download it by clicking this and download that here. I could also come in and choose checkout to edit that object. I could export it to Excel. I could change my layout view to a table to see more information about that document. And then I could also just open it. So if I open it in a new tab, for instance, then I can see the document and information about it. So it's a software configuration report that I had local, nothing too specific, but if I wanted to then delete this object and come in here and choose, maybe I had made a mistake, edit, notice I can replace the file that's stored in the object. So this is how I would do that. I can check it out and I can edit it, but there isn't really a way for me to delete it out of the box here. Your administrators can turn that on, and as long as it's a new object, you should be able to delete it, but out of the box, you can't delete anything. All right, so we've looked at the creation of a new object in item revision. We have edited some of its properties, talked about permissions in the system. But just note that one thing that we didn't do is if I come into Explorer, select my component now that it's under the new stuff folder, I can come in here and choose check out. And if I choose check out, it'll actually put a little lock icon on it. And anybody that comes and looks at this object is going to see information about me and the fact that I have this locked. So they can't do anything to the object because I have it checked out. If I'm doing a lot of work, a lot of changes, a lot of attachments, having it checked out is a proper way to do it, just so that people see that you're working with it and you don't play the game of first one to save wins. So this is interacting, checking in, checking out, editing objects, looking at permissions. We'll be utilizing these objects in future videos to get approvals on them and submit them into workflows to interact with the data and do the things that we need to do day to day.